A story I've been covering extensively on my channel is the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline and who was actually in charge of the United States for the last 4 years. To me, this is the biggest scandal in American history. The powers of the president were unconstitutionally usurped by unelected Biden staffers and used to implement one of the most disastrous and anti-American set of policies we have ever seen. And just to catch everybody up to speed who hasn't seen all of my videos on this topic, this is where we're at. Jake Tapper exposed in his book that the entire Democrat establishment knew about Biden's decline and willfully covered it up. Jill Biden's chief of staff was identified and ousted as the real puppet master pulling the strings. Joe Biden apparently spontaneously got extremely late-stage prostate cancer, and the White House physician admitted that Joe Biden's physical body was so weak and frail that if he had won the 2024 election, they would have admitted him to a wheelchair for the entire presidency, because if he would have fallen over one more time, his entire body might have broken. But today, another massive bombshell drops as Biden's doctor is forced to testify in front of the House Oversight Committee, and his answers reveal that he was in on the cover-up the entire time. This scandal is looking so bad for Biden that even his best friend, Morning Joe, is deciding to turn on him, and I'm gonna show you guys all of that in this video. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but the first thing I'm gonna show you is Biden's doctor leaving the House Oversight Committee hearing in shame, and then I'll show you what he said that shocked everybody.
Dr. O'Connor, how is that?
Will you make any comments to press, sir?
Do you have a message for the committee?
Look at him hanging his head in shame because he knows he is complicit in one of the largest, if not the largest, betrayal of democracy in American history. These people were so brazen in their treachery to the country because they thought they were going to get away with it. They had to get away with it. That's why they took the unconscionable step of weaponizing the justice system to try to put Donald Trump away forever, because they had to make sure that he could not return to political life and ever hold them accountable or expose them for what they did. They delegated the powers of the president to a shadow government filled with radical Obama staffers without the consent of the American people. In fact, they tried to gaslight the American people every time we questioned if the president of the United States was even mentally fit to perform the job. Their insatiable, tyrannical desire for power led them to manipulating the rule of law, using lawfare against a political opponent like we're a banana republic, ignoring the Constitution and trampling all over the principles of democracy. But after Biden's shady doctor left the hearing, ignored the press, hung his head in shame, the leader of the House Oversight Committee came out and revealed to the press what the doctor said, indicating that he knew about the entire thing.
I can tell you exactly what happened. Dr. O'Connor pleaded the Fifth Amendment, and I'm gonna read the first two questions that were asked. Were you ever told to lie about the president's health? He pleaded the Fifth Amendment. He would not answer that question. The second question, did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? Again, President Biden's White House physician pleaded the Fifth Amendment. This is unprecedented, and I think that this adds more fuel to the fire that there was a cover-up. I believe that this adds legitimacy to the Tapper book and the other books that are in the works that are about to come out that shows there was a lot of suspicious activity taking place in the White House with respect to the president's health.
By those answers, you can tell the doctor is terrified. He was probably promised protection for obfuscating his duties to the American people to give an accurate medical reporting of Joe Biden's physical and mental health. This was the guy that assured us that our eyes and our ears were lying, and Joe Biden was sharp as a tack. He was physically strong and fit. While every medical expert agrees, to reach Biden's late stage of prostate cancer, the signs would have been clearly noticeable for 5 to 10 years. So all of this alone, this scandal, it would be a problem in a vacuum. It might be less of a problem if Joe Biden's presidency was the most amazing and prosperous thing for America. But it's certainly even more of a problem seeing as it was the exact opposite of that. Joe Biden was an empty suit used as a figurehead to push forth an agenda that was anti-American, racist, and destructive, top down. And now the Democrats are in panic mode because we're not going to just let this go. We want to get to the bottom of it. Here's the leader of the House Oversight Committee explaining why this doctor's suspicious testimony is so important.
His actions today speak loud and clear. Again, this was an opportunity to come clean. And, you know, you can say, oh, the president was in great health. This is just a conspiracy theory. He was fine. I don't know why they used the auto pen 75% of the time when he was in the White House. I mean, this is what it's all about. It's about the auto pen. There is serious concern, and the evidence mounts by the minute that Joe Biden had no idea what his name was being signed to. And we're talking about executive orders, and we are talking about pardons. So, you know, what Dr. O'Connor did today only added fuel to the fire, that there was a cover-up, and that Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to serve as President of the United States.
So what this investigation overall is trying to yield is the names of the people who had control of the auto pen and who was dictating policy. And in the next clip I'll show you, you'll understand why this is so important. And I'll give you a hint. These Joe Biden pardons might get nullified. And what I expect as the walls start to close in on every single member of the Democrat establishment is fingers are going to start pointing and people are going to start getting thrown under the bus. Because these are serious crimes. This is high treason. And if you know your time is coming, it serves your self-interest much more to get out in front of it, cooperate, and pray to Almighty God that they show you some leniency. I did a video a few weeks back showing that a lot of the Democrat establishment was pointing fingers at Jill Biden's chief of staff. And I'll link that video at the end. But this hearing today comes weeks after the Senate Judiciary Committee held their own hearing, and every single Democrat member on that committee walked out of the hearing and refused to participate. Why? Because they're all complicit. But what was their reason? It was because they didn't want to dignify such a meaningless and absurd political circus. Their talking point is, that's in the past, we can't change anything about it. What we need to be focused on is the survival of our democracy and the threats from the big bad orange man. But now let me show you this insane clip from that hearing where Ted Cruz exposes how maliciously this auto pen was used and what the law says about documents that were signed with this auto pen without the president's consent. Take a look.
In 2021, President Biden issued 78 executive orders. None were signed with an auto pen. That first year of the presidency, Biden, I suppose, was relatively lucid, and 78 executive orders he signed by hand. The second year, however, we see the auto pen emerge. The first auto pen executive order was issued on July 15th, 2022. After that day, 100% of the executive orders issued in 2022 were signed by an auto pen. In 2023, Biden issued 24 executive orders. 16 were auto-penned. In 2024, Biden issued 19. 14 were auto-penned. In 2025, Biden issued 14 executive orders. Every single one was auto-penned. Mr. Wald, let me ask you as a legal matter, if there's a law that's passed both houses of Congress and it goes to the White House, and a staffer auto-pens signing that law without the president's authorization, is that law legally passed and signed into law?
No.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer auto-pens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the President of the United States and a staffer auto-pens it without the President's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
Okay, so this is getting sketchy. What's even more sketchy is they said 75% of the time that the auto pen was used, Joe Biden was present in Washington, D.C. So it's becoming increasingly clear that the entire government was being run while Joe Biden was sitting on a beach eating ice cream, falling off of bicycles. Every single accusation they made towards Donald Trump was a confession of what they were doing. And they all knew what they were doing was so gravely unconstitutional that the platform for their entire campaign was Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, he's a fascist, he is Hitler. To them, the stakes were so high. They couldn't take the chance at running a campaign based on policy differences. It had to be mass hysteria and fear-mongering to the American people that discussing policies wasn't as pertinent as fighting for the survival of the democracy that they claim to cherish. They had the chance to install Kamala Harris as president without the need for an election. They could have fulfilled their radical DEI fantasy world and anointed the first black woman president. But they elected to keep a corpse as the president because even though Kamala Harris is dumb, and boy is she dumb, and even they know that she's dumb, a dumb person is unpredictable. They're harder to control. An old man who likes ice cream is a much more suitable path if you want to run a shadow government unimpeded. And now more Democrat grifters are trying to take advantage of the Biden cover-up fiasco, pretend as if they weren't complicit the whole time, and how flabbergasted they are to discover what everybody has already known since 2020. Here they are on Morning Joe cooking both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You guys have reporting in the book where Joe Biden, when letting Kamala Harris know he's dipping out of the race, saying, you shouldn't run away from me entirely, though some people are probably going to tell you to do that. I am popular in places like Pennsylvania, which you're going to need to win.
Yeah, what's remarkable about that moment, Willie, is that that call happens on the day of her debate with Donald Trump, which is in Philadelphia. And Biden is calling ostensibly to wish her good luck on one of the most consequential nights of her professional life. And then he says he's hearing from friends that she may be campaigning in a way that is disloyal to him. And he suggests that could be a political mistake because he remains popular in Pennsylvania. But remember, at this time, Joe Biden has basically been pushed off the ticket, and Democrats do not want him running, and many actually want her to separate herself from him. And that's not the only reason she didn't separate herself from him, but that's a key moment in this campaign in which she's really trying to run her own race against Donald Trump.
I think Joe Biden didn't want Kamala Harris to distance himself from him, not because of some concern about loyalty, but because if she started expressing how badly she thought the administration was run and how she would have done so many things differently, it would have given a lot of credibility to the concern that Joe Biden's mental health was on a steep decline for several years. Kamala Harris announced that she was going to be the Democrat candidate and then avoided any media interviews for over 40 days. That's because they wanted to get a coordinated message together. And every time she was asked why Joe Biden just suddenly dropped out, she became visibly uncomfortable and could never answer the question. She had to tie herself to Joe Biden's hip, accept all of the failures that came with that, because her criticizing him would have revealed her complicity in the entire cover-up that everybody knew was going on. Now, this last clip is absolutely hilarious. They report that Kamala Harris's campaign staff were in total disbelief by how absolutely bad and incompetent she was as a candidate. And they talk about her disastrous meltdown on The View. Watch.
A lot of the folks around Kamala Harris wanted her to make some distance from Biden on various places. They said, you know, he's an albatross, his numbers are so bad, the public really does not want him as president. And to have a chance at winning this race, we have to have some distance. And she was not willing to do that. I mean, as you showed the famous clip there on The View, she gives that answer, and our book reports her aides backstage, head in their hands. They try to get the host to actually do the question again to hopefully revise her answer, which she never does. So What her team is contending with throughout the fall is, his numbers, his problems, and she doesn't want to create any public distance. She thinks it won't be authentic. She believes that it wouldn't work, and her team is trying to get her to do that. So
I think any politician would have had trouble navigating those treacherous waters, but Kamala Harris by far had to have been the worst possible candidate they could have thrown in the fourth quarter and expected her to win the election. They love to talk about how Trump is for the rich, Trump is only doing things to benefit his wealthy and rich friends, but completely ignore that the elite ruling class of the Democrat Party decided to overrule the Democratic vote in their primary of the people, anoint Kamala Harris as the candidate, and then bankroll her with $1.5 billion to spend in 90 days. The Democrat elites were so desperate, they used their institutional control over the media to have 60 Minutes deceptively edit her interview questions. When have you ever seen that before? This is the most corrupt, scandal-ridden administration in American history. Their crimes against the American people are so heinous that this investigation cannot stop until the culprits are brought to justice. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. What should happen to the people who are found guilty of conspiring to overthrow our democracy? If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.